Center Mall closes for good. The mall opened in 1984, was once the main hub for shopping in the city. The owners announced the closure a few months ago. No word on what the group managing the building will turn it into.
Hello everyone, I'm your cruise director Kristen, and this is the Knoxville Center Mall in Knoxville, Tennessee. I visited on January 31st, 2020, a day that sooner or later will come for every mall, the day this one closes. I was really surprised at the number of people who were here to take one last walk around their local mall. A lot of families with kids, older people who have probably mall walked here every morning for years, and even a couple of news crews. One mall walker pulled me aside and showed me his collection of photos of the mall before the remodel and pointed out a few things I wanted to make sure to see. People of Knoxville, you're cool in my book, and I'm really sorry your mall is closing. Knoxville Center was originally known as East Town Mall and opened in July 1984. It was developed by Simon Property Group. Like many malls that came before it, it was built on an undeveloped tract of land on the eastern side of Knoxville's 640 Loop with the hopes that the area around it would develop in reaction to the mall's presence. Over 100,000 people visited the mall on its first day. It was the second Simon Mall in Knoxville after West Town Mall on the opposite side of town was built in 1972. Simon envisioned a counterpart on the less developed east side. At opening, the mall had 5 anchors: JCPenney, Sears, Proffitt's, Miller's, and Service Merchandise, along with 92 inline tenants. Unfortunately, in the 35 years that have followed, most of Knoxville's new development has tended westward and the east side stagnated, leaving East Town Mall as an island unto itself. The ramp to exit 640 is incredibly confusing to an out-of-towner. I almost missed my turn, and until I was on top of it, wondered where a mall could be among all this overgrown brush, until I turned a corner and there it was. The mall was a primary destination for East Side Knoxville residents for the first 2 decades of its existence. The original design featured a stage with a waterfall at center court, showcased many local events. Changes in the anchor mix began in 1987 when Allentown, Pennsylvania-based Hess's purchased the Knoxville-based Millers via hostile takeover, which it remained until 1992 when Hess's sold their Knoxville operations to Dillard's. The service merchandise space closed in 1999 alongside the rest of the chain. Their space remained vacant for 5 years until a fitness complex took over called Rush Fitness. The mall underwent a significant remodel in 1997, introducing the Tennessee mountain theme you see today with images of fishing and picnics. The food court was renamed Cade's Cookout after Cade's Cove, a popular hiking destination in nearby Great Smoky Mountain National Park. I like the theming in here. It's warm and inviting without being over the top with whimsy, the way some of the Mills properties are. It has character and looks modern without falling into that big white box trap.
East Knoxville was more than a place to shop. For decades, it was a place for stories.
This place has seen better days, of course, so have I.
Especially when retired reporter Ken Schwall was desperate.
Whenever we were stuck for something meaningful and relevant to do, we would come here, so we were here a lot, believe me. Lighter topics, nothing serious, that was against the rule.
He's not positive, but guesses maybe 100 newscasts ended with Schwall at the mall. Plus, it was good exercise.
During the mall's heyday, right up until its closing, the local WBIR news station featured a regular segment called Positively Schwall at the Mall, in which reporter Ken Schwall would conduct man-on-the-street interviews inside the mall about the events of the day, or even just asking shoppers what was on their mind. He's retired now, but he went to the mall on its last day to record one last segment with the East Town Mall shoppers.
It's been a long time since Schwall shoved a microphone into a stranger's face. Whew. With one last shot.
Just like the old days.
Is there any chance he could find one of his zany characters in an empty mall?
What are you doing on the floor?
It's restful. It's very restful. Mr. Schwall. Sir, Ken, sir.
What's he doing on the floor?
Well, at the time, we were reenacting something that happened many years ago.
I had a seizure, fell on the floor, was shaking all over.
That's your fondest memory of the place?
They put me in a really nice, comfortable wheelchair.
Oh, okay.
And rolled me back in the back, behind the restaurants.
That's good.
He still got it. This is Schwall's world. We're just living in it. But the part of that world that was close to the station had lots of people and a food court. It's now just a fond memory.
After the 1997 remodel, things did not improve as Simon had hoped. There was a general resistance among the shopping public to the new name, and most of the people I've spoken to still do and have always referred to it as East Town Mall. In 2008, the mall was the scene of a tragic shooting when a man opened fire on the owner of a men's clothing store with whom he had had a disagreement about an alteration. 15 shots were fired, the mall was closed for 2 days, and the owner died. Later that year, in possible reaction to the negative publicity, Dillard's became the first anchor to close and never reopen or be occupied again. In 2014, Simon Properties placed the mall up for sale, only to end up transferring the property to its own sister corporation, Washington Prime, who handles Simon's less upmarket and lower-earning properties. Washington Prime was unable to turn the property around from its slow descent into failure, and it was sold again for roughly a third of its appraised value in 2016 to a group of local investors led by Brent Enderly, who still own it today. Sears closed in September 2018. There were plans to drywall in the upper floor of the Sears wing and convert that area to medical offices. Obviously, this didn't happen, and the doors leading to the area were wide open to explore behind. The new owners adopted the name East Town Mall in 2017 internally, but never changed the signage anywhere in the property. The design of the current signage in the mall all dates back to the Washington Prime years.
Because we have a moment here, let me tell you that I have recently become a secret connoisseur of last looks. You know the way people look at you when they believe it's for the last time? I've started collecting these looks. There's one right now.
Also in 2017, JCPenney closed. I'm not sure of the reasons, but 3 years later, the entire wing that leads to it smells of mold. It's sealed both outside and inside. The rest of the mall is clean and fairly well maintained, so I'm not sure if it's damage to the roof or something else causing the water to get in. You may not know this, but it's common practice among department store owners to own their buildings outright even though they're attached to the mall. The JCPenney is owned by the mall's owners. The former Belk, Dillard's, and Sears spaces are owned by the chain that once inhabited them, which can complicate demolition or redevelopment plans. You can't tear down or remodel a building that isn't yours. When the new owners took over, they made grand announcements about how the mall would be revitalized, as new owners often do. By 2019, the mall's owners were being sued by their maintenance and utility contractors for nearly $1 million in unpaid services and were $108,000 in arrears in taxes to Knox County. Knoxville Center's closure was announced in October 2019, and the Regal Cinemas closed immediately following the announcement. Belk closed in November, and at the time of Belk's closure, there were only 12 stores and 2 restaurants open inside the mall. The last 4 tenants closed the week leading up to January 31st. On the day I visited, nothing was open inside. There are no concrete plans for what to do with the property. They can no longer afford to keep the doors open, especially with the looming lawsuits. They plan to speak to local leaders, business owners, and residents to determine what the people want. The LLC that owns the mall, previously owned as Knoxville Partners LLC, was recently renamed Millertown Pavilion LLC, which will be interesting to see if the future incarnation of the property ends up being called Millertown Pavilion. For now, though, the doors are closed with no intention of being reopened to the public. It hits different when you're seeing and experiencing something you know will be for the last time. You can still see it, but from now on the existence of walking through this mall will only exist like Rolling Acres, like Randall Park, like Swansea Mall on a screen. I want to give a shout out to Phil Crawford and our other patrons for helping make this trip and the channel possible. We just hit 1,700 subscribers, and the overwhelming support of all our viewers makes the work that goes into these videos worth it. Thank you again for watching, and from both of us at UniComm, we'll see you next time.